Hello, everyone. How's everyone doing? Hi. Thank you all so much for joining us on our panel on financial aid. I know there's a lot of information that you need to know as you're applying for college or preparing for college, whether you're a freshman in high school. It's never too soon to prepare. So thank you all so much for joining us. My name is Mariah Al-Subi. I'm the Selection Programs Coordinator at the Boettcher Foundation, and I'm on this panel to provide the merit-based scholarship perspective on how to prepare for that, and that as a method of financial aid for preparing for college. Thank you.
And my name is Janelle Cook. I work in financial aid at Colorado Mountain College, and I am here to help all of you with those financial aid questions that you might have and hopefully make the process seem a little bit easier and less daunting.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Joanna. I am also with Colorado Mountain College in the Office of Financial Aid. I am the Financial Aid and Scholarship Coordinator. As Janelle said, we hope, if nothing else, that this opportunity will make financial aid a little less scary, put some friendly faces to the process. And again, thanks for being here and taking the time to spend with us.
My name's Bob Glay. I'm a former Aspen School Board member and active participant in engaging with this college admissions office here at the Aspen High School over the many years, helping students navigate the application and financial aid process, and have successfully helped students of all types reach their goals. So over about a 10 or 15 year period. So I've seen almost any combination of complex financial aid funding that's needed to happen. So, yeah.
And one of our panelists did this to set the stage for our last panel, so I'm directly stealing from her when I do this. I just want to gauge what our audience consists of. So can you raise your hand if you're a senior? How about, do we have any juniors in the audience? Freshmen or sophomores? Parents. Oh, great, a lot of parents. Raise your hand if you're considering going out of state for college. How about in-state? Great, thank you so much. And then we'll get started. This panel will consist of a few questions that we'll go through. We'll try to go through them as quickly as possible. And then if you still have any questions at the end that we haven't answered through our slides, we'll have about 15 minutes or 10 minutes for a Q&A at the end, and we'll have our contact information on the very last slide during that Q&A session in case there are any questions that you didn't want to share, or you didn't get time to share. You can email us and we'll get to it. So, our first question here is, how do students apply for financial aid and scholarships, and is there any advice for navigating the process? So, I'll start with a little piece of advice. I just said it, but it's never too soon to start preparing for scholarships and start preparing for that financial aid package you'll get. From the merit-based aid perspective, one thing that you could consider is a 4-year plan almost, and one thing we share at the Boettcher Foundation is this piece of paper here that you can come to the front and take a picture of at the end, and it introduces ways to begin that process. So for your freshman year, you might want to plan for the future and explore your passions. For freshmen that are in the audience, consider those clubs and activities that are being offered to you at your high school institution and register for those and try to figure out what you like. And then your sophomore year, begin to deepen your experiences. Start to become more involved with your community service organization or your club that you're a part of. Deepen your commitment to those. Meet with your guidance counselor a little bit more regularly, and start to plan for the PSAT or some practice tests there. Your junior year is when you actually take those tests. I know a lot of organizations and schools are test optional at this point, which is really great because tests are not great for all students, and it's totally fine if you're one of those students that either does not do well on tests or you just don't want to take it. But if you think that you have the capacity to be able to do well on those tests and that they could be beneficial for you, it's really helpful to take those. At the Boettcher Foundation, we are test optional for our Scholarship Foundation application, and we do not look at applications without tests as bad, but if you have the capacity to be able to take those in competitive merit-based scholarship applications, it is an edge that could push you forward, but you could also compensate with other ways if you are not a test taker. And then your senior year, just apply for colleges, visit, and confirm. It's never too early to start applying for scholarships. I know we'll talk a little bit later about FAFSA and CAFSA later, those federal aid tools and resources that you could use for need-based financial aid, and then for merit-based financial aid. I know the Betcher Scholarship application has been open since September 1st, and I keep referring to the Betcher Scholarship, but I have not said what it is yet. It's 50 comprehensive scholarships to in-state Colorado students that are awarded each year. What I mean by comprehensive scholarship is it covers the full cost of attendance at any public school in the state of Colorado and the full tuition and fees at any private school in the state of Colorado. So it's essentially a full ride to any institution in the state of Colorado, minus cost of attendance, which is the room and board if you choose to attend a private institution. And that's all I'll say about that because I've gone over my minute to answer this question.
I'm going to talk a little bit about advice for navigating the process. I think in the last panel discussion, it was brought up by one of the college application folk or college admissions folks. You want to stay organized. For you all that are applying to schools this year, you're using most likely the Common Application. You may be applying to 1 to 10, 12 schools, and each one of them is going to start interacting with you and redirecting you to their websites, and they're going to be issuing you temporary or permanent student IDs, even though you're not in yet, to submit various additional pieces of information and track your application process that you've submitted. So the Common App goes in, but then they receive it, and then they're going to start tracking what else they need from you. And the financial aid piece will be there as well, both within their organization, but also through the FAFSA, which is FAFSA, and you need to begin the process of interacting with it to get all the schools you're applying to the financial information that they will use to put together your financial aid package as you get accepted. So it's just a lot of usernames and sign-ons and parents. Your tax returns will need to be submitted and uploaded, and you get to have your own FSA ID to submit your tax returns, and it's linking your student's application with your tax return if they're a dependent of yours. And the joy in all this is this happens for all 4 years. So this is not a jump through one hoop as you get into college and you'll never have to do it again. That's why I'm encouraging you to get started when it opens. It's opening a little later this year in December, to begin to really interact with it and understand its eccentricities and nuances, because it's something you're going to be present with if you're planning on going to school for 4 years. For anybody going to be applying to a private school in the audience? Yes? No? Few? Maybe a few? If you're considering that, there's a whole separate financial aid program called CSS Profile, and an IDOC, which is sort of the plumbing of the system to upload documents that you're going to need to be very familiar with. And again, that'll be for all 4 years. So getting used to these systems, just like you get used to a banking system on the internet, for your bank or whatever, just knowing how to navigate through it really will make your life a lot easier. So just some advice for you there. And creating a spreadsheet that you, as parents and students, can share, whether it's on Google Sheets or something like that, that quantifies all the different usernames, passwords, what the tuition is, what the room and board is, what your financial aid packages look like, whether you got in, when the deadlines are. If you can put one big spreadsheet together that everybody can look at, you'll be able to make really good decisions. And when May comes along, and you're at the very final end of this process of financial aid, you'll be able to do a better comparison of what makes sense to do from a school standpoint in terms of acceptance. So. Anybody else want to answer this question? You guys good?
So. I'll just address this briefly on the difference between sticker price and actual cost of attending college. For most universities, your sticker price is not going to be the actual price that you pay. So when you go in and you look at the cost of attendance for a university, that does not include the financial aid benefits package that you'll be receiving. So please apply to those universities if you're interested in them, despite the sticker price, because that financial aid package will more than likely reduce that price for you, and most students, like 90% of students, are not paying the sticker price at any given institution. And depending on the institution, and Colorado Mountain College can speak to their institution, they'll provide a more comprehensive package that can suit your needs a little better, as long as you do what is required on your end, applying for those scholarships, applying for that package, making sure all your information is given to them on time, your FAFSA, your CAFSA, so that they have everything they need to make sure that the package they're giving you suits you. And if there's a gap at the end, there are ways that your family can address those that we'll talk about later on. But if you'd like to.
I would second what Mariah said. But yeah, it's going to, of course, it's going to vary depending on what school you go to, and you know, not to be mindful, of course, of cost. Like we have to take that into consideration, and it's important to recognize and to acknowledge. We all have different, you know, situations and budgets and goals, and maybe, you know, the most expensive school, you know, if it doesn't fit your goals and, you know, what you're looking to get out of your education, then, you know, there's nothing wrong with maybe looking at something a little more affordable. But keep in mind that, you know, financial aid is here to help. It's to, you know, and also to think about, as you're putting money into your education, it is an investment. And that's the other thing. It's not, you know, you're not throwing money away. I mean, it is an investment. So, you know, there's just a lot of things you need to, you know, to take into consideration. And, you know, most importantly, you know, what are you looking for? What are your goals? And also just remember that there are real people behind the scenes. Some of you, most of you, you know, have never done this before. Parents, you may or may not have done this before. But remember that no matter where you go to school, there are resources for you. There are real people who, this is what we do, this is what we love to do, to make sure that you have access to all those opportunities. Knowing it is half the battle. Knowing what's out there, how to navigate it, how to connect all those dots. And that's where, you know, where we all come in. So just remember that, to use the professionals, because it'll make your journey easier and hopefully more enjoyable.
How do I use a price calculator? Do you want to answer that?
Yeah, so a net price calculator, that is something that is required to be on every school site that participates in federal funding. So if you go to the site, you'll have a net price calculator where you can enter income information, family size, AGI, assets, maybe some questions about child support, farm or business information, and then it will give you an estimate of what you might receive at that school, and then based on their costs. So then you can get an idea, and again, this is just an estimate to give you an idea of what you may receive. If you've submitted the FAFSA, which again, as Bob said, this does not open until December, so normally it opens today. If you were to go to the site today, you would only find the 23-24, and if you plan on enrolling for fall of 24, you will be completing the 2024-2025 FAFSA, which will not open until, like he said, sometime in December, and we have not heard the specific date yet. There's also going to be available a federal student aid estimator. This is going to be based off of the new, so the FAFSA is changing. The hasn't changed this much in over 40 years. So all of you are going to be seeing something that we've never seen before. It's may not look any different to you because you don't know any different, but it's going to be a different mindset for all of us who have worked in financial aid before. But the Federal Student Aid Estimator, that site is down right now if you were to Google it. But it should be up here hopefully in the next week or so is our hope. But you should be able to enter information and it will give you an estimate of the federal aid that you would qualify for. And then I will also give this to you as well because this just came out on Friday, was just announced. There is also a federal, it's a FAFSA prototype, it's called Prototype site, and you can actually play with scenarios that are similar to your own and get an idea of what you might qualify and what the FAFSA will look like.
This question is, does early decision mean more aid? And it's a good question to have. And with our other panelists here in the other panel, they were from private, smaller liberal arts institutions, and they spoke to the answer at their schools, and really it just depends. Some schools have policies where early decision does mean you qualify for more aid, and for some schools it just affects your ability to be accepted at their institution, and it does not affect what your financial aid package would look like. And so it really depends on the institution you're attending, and it would be beneficial to ask them directly. I will say if you're considering applying for the Boettcher Scholarship and you complete a binding early application to a university that is out of state, that does prohibit you from moving forward in the Boettcher application process, in the Boettcher selection process. So even if you were to get a position as a semifinalist or a finalist, if you've already committed yourself to an out-of-state institution, you would not be able to continue in the Boettcher process. So, thank you.
Okay, so what are the different types of financial aid available to help students pay? I will first go over, you need to submit a federal application, which is a free application for federal student aid. That is going to be the first step if you are eligible to complete that in opening and maximizing funding opportunities. This is a free application, so if you go on a site and they're trying to charge you money, then you're probably not in the right place. Studentaid.gov, you will not be charged to complete that application. And again, don't go there until December, and hopefully your schools will be letting you know when that's available and announcing in newsletters or text messages to all of you to let you know when that's open. But some of the different types of funding that you will be applying for by completing that application is going to be federal grants, state grants, campus employment, which is work study, institutional scholarships in some cases. You only need to complete the FAFSA form, and then also student loans, which are the federal loans. If you plan on staying in state and you do not qualify for the FAFSA to complete it because of your residential status, we also have a state application, which is called a CASFA, and it stands for Colorado Application for State Financial Aid. So you may not qualify for the federal funding, but you can still be considered for the state grants as well as state work study. And then again, so the different types are going to be federal and state aid, institutional aid, scholarships through private donors are also another option for paying for your expenses as well.
In addition to what we just talked about with financial aid through the FAFSA government system, those going on to private schools across the country, CSS Profile, we talked about it earlier, is the site you'll need to go to complete the application for private schools if you're applying to any of them. And they also really will, it's very important to do that early because their aid actually runs out as they're bringing people through the system, and you want to make sure you apply early to their system. We've talked a little bit about Boettcher Foundation. There's Daniels Scholars, if you've ever heard of them here in the state of Colorado, that'll offer a full scholarship to any in-state Colorado school. You may want to look at that. Their applications are coming up quickly. One that just closed that may be appropriate for juniors and sophomores and freshmen who are in unique situations The 25 most well-endowed schools in the United States, you can think of them by name: Yale, Harvard, Notre Dame, places like that. If you're thinking of applying to those but know you need a lot of aid, there's an organization called QuestBridge that is very, very early application and marries funding needs and your college application into one, but you have to get it all done by September 26th or 28th. And it goes to the 25 schools, and if you match with one of the 25 schools, they want you, you want them, you have a full ride for full years through that organization. And then your local school districts may be sponsoring scholarships. Really, I don't know if any of you students love to go to thrift stores or not, but I look at college funding a lot like thrift stores, which is you can find some amazing things there, but you actually have to work for it. They're not just going to come to you. And so, when you think about other financial aid and mechanisms to fund college, just really you've got to work for it is really the key. And as was said earlier, there are people in your community, in your school district, and certainly even within the state, like Betcher Foundation organizations, that you can call up and say, hey, I need some help. Can you help me with this? Your mom and dads are likely not experts on this.
I'll just add this because it's a good jumping point, and we'll skip the question that addresses it later on, is that the Betcher Scholarship is a completely merit-based scholarship. We do not take financial need into consideration. We are need aware. If the students put it into their essays or put it into their short answers, then we'll know, but we don't take any financial information directly. We don't ask for tax returns or anything like that. Our application is open through November 1st at 5 p.m. The Daniels Fund Scholarship, I believe, is open until October 15th. The first step of their application does not require any essays. They've made it really short. They do have they are a need-based scholarship. And so then you'll have to put in your financial information into there. And then the other scholarships you've mentioned are really incredible. I also wanted to add that there's millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars of scholarships that go unclaimed each year. And that's really sad because there's a need there, and there's a bridge that's not being connected between the students that would like to access that funding and then the scholarships that are available that have no applicants. And so I just want to say, if there's like a $200 scholarship and it's, that's a pretty small scholarship, you might not want to waste your time applying for that. I'd say, well, there's so many people that might have that same mentality, and there's so many of those smaller scholarships out there for being redheaded or left-handed or making your prom dress out of duct tape. There's so many niche scholarships out there that people don't consider, and those add up. I have a friend that ended up using a lot of those small scholarships and then some merit-based institutional scholarships, and he ended up financing himself so that he didn't have to take out any loans at CU Boulder. So it's really awesome. It's available to you. One resource that's really helpful for applying to so many scholarships and not wanting to fill out the same information over and over and over again is called Scholar Snap. It's SCHOLARSNAPP. It's Scholar Snap, and it saves all that main information, your demographic information, your name, your address, all that stuff that's repeated throughout multiple applications, and then you can just use it, almost like the Common App, to apply for a lot of scholarships. The Betcher Foundation is on there. I believe the Daniels Fund is also on there, and so then you can save some time as you're applying for a lot of scholarships if that's a way that you're wanting to finance your education. And I just addressed this. So Need Blind is applications that just do not take any financial aid into consideration or financial need into consideration. Those are the completely merit-based scholarships. And then Need Aware understands if there is financial need, but it's not need-based, which need-based is if you don't have a financial need, you are not eligible to apply. It's only for people who meet the certain thresholds that depend on those scholarship applications.
I'll answer the next question to begin. what are the common mistakes you see in applying for financial aid and how can they be avoided? I think the number one one that I have seen over the many different people I've helped is people who put their heads in the sand, whether it's the students or the parents who are too busy or the students aren't communicating to the parents around deadlines. Getting the application done early and completed and checked off is, I think, the most important thing to remember. There are hard deadlines, and once you miss them, it's pretty difficult to make up. People don't care. There's thousands of students, and people move on. So that would be, I think, one of the most common mistakes that I see.
I'll add to it. We see that a lot every year. I just want to validate it. Look at the times that things are due. Don't assume everything's due at midnight. For example, the Betcher Foundation Scholarship is due at 5 p.m. on November 1st. That's close of business for us, so that we're not up until 2 a.m. if anyone has technical difficulties. Other scholarships in other schools might have that same random deadline. Maybe it's 10 a.m. deadline, so that they can address those difficulties in the middle of the day. So make sure you're not just looking at the date. You're also looking at the time, and never make any assumptions when it comes to that.
Yeah, I'll just add that some of the common mistakes that we see is we're a community college, and sometimes students will wait until the last minute. So like they're saying, be sure you are aware of the deadlines. This is a process, so submitting a FAFSA does not happen in one day. And sometimes if you have not created your FSA ID, which is what you use to sign in to complete the application and sign it, that takes 1 to 3 days in some cases. And so we find sometimes, we have a couple of residential campuses where they'll have all their stuff ready to move in and they have not completed the FAFSA. And those are hard conversations to have. So again, just ensuring you're giving yourself enough time to have the process take place, because in some cases, some of you are going to be selected for what's called verification. And when that happens, you may have additional steps that you're going to need to work with your financial aid office. So I think another common mistake is not getting access to your financial aid portals, signing in and seeing specifically what that school is requiring. If you have a checklist and you see that you needed to submit, something to verify something that was submitted on the FAFSA, financial aid administrators cannot proceed until you do what you need to do on your part as well. And so again, having those sign-ins to your portals. In some cases, there's aid that needs to be accepted before you can actually count on receiving it. So for Colorado Mountain College, we automatically assume all of you are going to want the grants. That's free money, does not need to be repaid. So we automatically will accept those grants for you. So you don't need to sign in and accept those. But if you're offered work study, which is campus employment, there are deadlines for accepting that before we start offering that to other students. And then loans also, there's a process for accepting the loans as well, and then additional requirements that would need to be met. I think another common mistake is assuming that the buckets for all of the funding is unlimited. In some cases, it is on a first come, first served basis, and we do run out of funding for specific buckets. So just keeping that in mind as well. Anything else?
I would just, again, echo what everybody on the panel has said. Don't procrastinate. I know we all do it, but it's really important that you take it seriously and just think of it as one thing you'll be able to check off your list. So just get it done, and then kind of to the other side of what Janelle was saying, that there is not every funding bucket is bottomless. On the other hand, sometimes students think they're not going to qualify for financial aid. My parents make too much. I'll never get that. It's too competitive. Please don't have that mindset. You will not know what you qualify for unless you try. Never think you don't, qualify. Please just, no matter what, if you don't apply, you won't know. And as Mariah mentioned, there are billions of dollars that go unused. So, put your name in the hat. Get the money that's there for you.
I'm going to use one word to describe what you just said, which is pride. A lot of times, whether you're a middle, there's the bulk of the people that are going to school are getting financial aid. you shouldn't let yourself or your parents' pride get in the way of applying for it. I mean, I'll give you a firsthand example. My son chose to go to a small private school in Oregon 10 years ago, something like that. And, we were ending up doing a full pay because of the income income category we were in. But I said, throw me a bone. He chose the one school he didn't get the $20,000 merit scholarship. And at the admissions day for admitted students, I talked to one of the admissions officers. I said, throw me a bone. She goes, you put in a FAFSA, I'll give you $7,500 type of thing. So you never know, and money is money. And so don't let pride get in the way of applying for financial aid. Do it.
Just because I think we're getting close to our Q&A time, so if you want to add points that we haven't addressed yet, we can do that. And I just want to add a few things before we move on to Q&A. One of the acronyms that the Boettcher Foundation has come up with to help students apply for merit-based aid and merit-based scholarships and maybe even competitive school applications, we always say you should ace your applications. And so that's academics, community service, and extracurriculars. Those are the three things you need to highlight in every single application for scholarships or schools. And so you need to highlight those academics and those classes you were taking. Maybe you only took honors classes because that's all that was offered at your school. Or if you did take honors instead of AP when that was offered to you, maybe you should reconsider that because a B in an AP or an IB class looks better than an A in a regular course. Or maybe you have the option to take community college courses because your school doesn't offer those extra opportunities. So for students that are freshmen or sophomores, those are things you should take into consideration for that academic aspect. We also talk about community service, and we talk about depth versus breadth. So making sure that you're actually being really involved with your organizations instead of just doing one thing once. You're getting into leadership positions, and you're really highlighting those in your application. For example, your extracurriculars, you might be in a sport, you might be on the football team. Don't just say you're on the football team, give them the position, give them how many seasons you played. You have some time to kind of explain that because you know yourself, but you need to shift your perspective and think about the person reading your application. They don't know you. So what do you want them to know? If you were reading the application, who would you see on that paper? Do you think it's a good reflection of who you are? Because a genuine application will shine through. And just as long as you talk about your passions and you address that, you ace your application, then you'll be good to go. We have a current Boettcher scholar that wrote her big scholarship about hot Cheetos. You can write about anything as long as you're passionate about it and you're able to show who you are through it. And she was able to address that ace through the hot Cheetos somehow. And so she got a full ride at CU. So it's awesome. Just be who you are and don't stop yourself because you're scared of being genuine or you're scared that it might not be good enough, because as long as you are showing who you are, that is more than enough, and that's exactly what everybody wants to see. And one helpful resource that I just want to point out to you that is already available to you, our Boettcher Foundation staff wrote this book. It's written by our CEO and one of our staff members who are both former Boettcher scholars. It's called All the Wisdom and None of the Junk. A complimentary copy was given to every single high school in the state of Colorado. It has sample essays that are annotated for what's good about them and maybe what's not so good and how it's seen through the eyes of admissions officers. It's really helpful for high school counselors, for students, for parents. If there's a line for it at your school, it's $10 on Amazon, so it's also really affordable. If your school doesn't have a copy, they can email us and we'll send them a copy free of charge. It's just part of our commitment to every single student in the state of Colorado to show you what you're capable of and how to show off who you are to those admissions counselors and those scholarship selection committees. So please be sure to take advantage of it. It's a really great book.
I think I would just add that just a reminder that you do have to reapply for aid every year. It is not just like they said, a one and done. You do need to apply every year. The hope is that after this year, it will continue to be open October 1st for applying. But the other thing I wanted to mention, and we had skipped over this question, it was about policies. you have an expectation as students. So once you receive financial aid, you do need to meet certain requirements, certain GPA requirements. You need to meet certain PACE requirements. So that's where we keep track of the amount of credits that you attempt and the amount of credits that you complete. So it's really important not to get into the habit of withdrawing, dropping, or failing courses. If you need help, if you're struggling, please do reach out. There's people there to help you on campus. There's support service, tutors, but you just have to let us know sometimes when you're struggling. Talk to your instructors. Also, ensure that you're in the right program. It's really important. I know you may have spoken with your advisor and you may have assumed that they put you in the right program, but double check it. You have student portals now that you can log into and verify that you're in the correct program. And why that's important is because for federal aid, you have to be enrolled in courses that apply to those eligible programs before we can pay out on those. So again, important for you to speak with your advisor. We always recommend that you don't self-advise, that you are meeting with someone who understands the process and can help you get registered for courses that, again, apply to your program. We don't want you to be taking classes that are wasting your time. So it's really important for you to just communicate, use your resources. And then also another misconception, I think, is that you have to be enrolled full-time in order to qualify for all the aid. And that is not always the case. Sometimes students can qualify for the full amount of a state grant just being enrolled half-time. So if you're struggling at being a full-time student, and we have disability services on our campuses that can approve for a lesser amount of credits. So again, you can reach out to the coordinators. They can help you and give you tools and resources for you to use for test taking and some of your homework assignments as well. But then, again, just knowing if you do have an enrollment requirement to be full-time, those are important to know as well.
I'm going to open it up to questions. We're running out of time for this session. Scott has a microphone, and he's going to take those questions as he sees hands.
My question is about 529s, and there's a lot of different information on the web about 529s, and what I'd like to know is whether you have 529s for your child, whether that can possibly hinder you in your financial aid applications, whether that shows as income that could negatively affect you for any need-based or need-aware scholarship aid.
Yeah, so I believe that would count on the asset part, but one of the changes that they are making with this FAFSA simplification, so in the past, if you had multiple children and you had a 529 for each of those children, it would all need to be counted on each FAFSA. But now what they're doing is you only need to report the 529 for that specific student's FAFSA. So you wouldn't be counting all of the other 529s on every FAFSA. Again, only the applicant, their 529 would still need to be reported.
You mentioned a few resources for scholarships, some of those smaller scholarships. I'm wondering if there are any other websites or any other things that we could kind of check out to help find some of those other ways to get scholarships.
Yeah, if you want to come up front at the end, we do have this handout, and I don't have enough. I should have printed more for the need. It has a list of websites that are helpful. We also have this on our website, the Boettcher Scholarship website. It's boettcherfoundation.org, and then we have a scholarship tab. And in our FAQs, we have a list of helpful resources for finding other scholarships. Some of the free scholarship search websites I'm seeing here are chegg.com, chegg.com, denverscholarship.org, scholarshipexperts.com, theprincetonreview.com, scholarships.com. There's lots of different websites that are really helpful for finding scholarships, and that's where you'd find those niche little, scholarship for being left-handed kind of things.
I want to emphasize why your question is really pertinent. Everybody getting into college is one thing, but working to finance it is also just as important. And as part of the financial student aid portal program, where you're going to end up with grants and loans from your school, offered from your school, you have to sit down as a student with your parents and talk about what reality check really is happening here, because there's a return on the investment that you're making at whatever level. And if it's mismatched and you end up taking a large amount of student loans, and your chosen profession is going to be one that is going to take a very, very long time to pay back, and you're paying it back at 5, 6, 7, 8, 9% interest since interest rates have gone up, you'll feel like all the news stories that you're in debt, and you haven't even gotten in debt yet. But it would be so much better if you applied your intellect and your effort to getting all these scholarships that are available that oftentimes go unused because nobody puts forth the effort to get them. They just check the box and take the free money for the student loan. And so it's not free, by the way. So I encourage you to use scholarships and really be looking at them, not just as you first apply to college, but then each and every year, just as you're part of your re-upping process for the merit and other grants that you get, looking for the scholarships too. They're available at your school once you're at your school. There's oftentimes.
And I just want to add one last thing, because your residency in state is a benefit. Just look at those in-state universities and in-state opportunities that are available to you. I know when you're in your senior year of high school, all you're thinking about is, oh my God, I need to get out of here. But being in this area already, you're 4 or 5 hours away from most of the universities on the I-25 corridor. That's a whole new world, and it's very, very different, even if you think it might not be. So I'd say it's worth it around this time of year to just take a tour and see some of those opportunities available to you, whether it be at a public or private institution in the state of Colorado. Just being a Colorado resident gives you an advantage and gives you an edge in terms of financial aid here in state. So, go give Colorado College or CU Boulder, the University of Denver, a quick tour, and it might change what you think. It seems like they're so close, but it's worth it to check them out when you're getting so much financial aid just for being a student in the state of Colorado. That's not merit-based, that's not need-based, that's just the situation you're in right now. It's a gift that's given to you based on your residency. So check it out, it's worthwhile.
I got a question here. Can you make recommendations about making this process efficient, so students aren't wasting a lot of time? What I'm thinking, like, let's say a student gets a financial aid package from school X, and they spent hundreds of hours seeking scholarships that they got. I'm assuming they can't use those scholarships towards their whatever parental responsibility. Is that the case? Do you know what I'm asking?
Are you asking if those additional scholarships can cover the gap?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, no, absolutely. So if you get outside scholarships and there's a gap between the financial aid package that was awarded to you at your institution of choice and the amount of money that is actually the cost of attendance at that institution, that gap usually is seen as the parental contribution. But up until the total cost of attendance, you can fill it with scholarships. And so that maximum, though, is if you're one of our amazing students that gets so many scholarships that you've already covered the cost of attendance, you can never benefit from too many scholarships, so you can't exceed that total cost of attendance. You would have to turn those scholarships away and allow them to be accessed by other students. But up until that total cost of attendance, which covers your tuition, your fees, your health care costs, depending on whether you're on your parents' insurance or not. So if you're not on your parents' insurance, your insurance cost would go to your total cost of attendance. That's your room and board, your food, your transportation. That's all calculated by the universities themselves to show how much it'll cost you to attend that university. Oftentimes, there's a gap between your financial aid package and that total cost of attendance. You can apply as many scholarships as you want to fill that gap. It does not need to exclusively be a parental contribution. And so be sure to, there's as we keep saying, so many scholarships that go unclaimed that can go in there, so then you're not having to pay that amount of money and you can just get it covered by institutions that are investing in you. I think that's a really important part of the scholarship situation to put in. You know, it seems difficult because you're applying to so many scholarships, and sometimes it can feel like, oh my God, I'm spending so much time on this. But these are people giving you money, and it's not free money. You have to earn it. So you have to show who you are on paper. You have to show why you deserve it. You have to show why you're going to be a worthwhile investment as a college student, and you might have to write some thank you notes to people that give you those scholarships. You might have to mail them out. Those are all parts of it, because that money is given to you to help improve you as a person, and then thus improve your community by what you do with that degree when you come out of it. And so I think another thing that is really important to pay attention to is, like you were saying, look into your degree program. If you know what you're going to study, you can start getting scholarships based on that too. That's another useful thing to look into. So if you want to go to nursing school or become a nurse, you can look up scholarships for nurses. And there's lots of opportunities there. And if you want to do aerospace engineering, or maybe you want to do a liberal art, maybe you want to study English, there's scholarships that are specific to what you want to study as well that can help fulfill that gap. But yeah, you can totally, if you find enough scholarships, there does not need to be a parental contribution. Cool. Thanks. Okay. Thank you all. Yeah, thank you all for joining us. That's all we have. I have some business cards up here if you have any more questions. Thanks.